How's it going, guys? Chris here. And back when I was a young lad, a really young lad to be specific, Nickelodeon came out with arguably its best show ever, that being Avatar: The Last Airbender. And in the very short list of things I consider to be genuine masterpieces, Avatar: The Last Airbender sits among those four. And for very good reason. Because you see, for it being a kids program airing in the early 2000s, airing besides shows like Drake and Josh, Joey 101, Fairly Odd Parents, Avatar's quality and writing is some of the best in fiction, let alone on Nickelodeon. Now, for the 5 Zoey 101 fans that are still out there somehow, I'm not saying that these shows are bad, but
I'm outraged. Outraged!
Me too.
well, I'm not saying they're any good either. Now, unfortunately, I can't say I had the pleasure of watching the show when it first aired, besides maybe some of Book 2 and 3, only due to the fact that, well, I was a year old at the time, and I was more than likely obsessed with the Wiggles, and less of Airbenders doing some cool. But with the new Netflix live action arriving next month, which by the way, I am insanely excited for. The show looks absolutely amazing and seems like it has a great creative team behind it that actually wants to adapt the show properly, while also adding their own touch to it, which I'm really excited for. As always, I'm just excited to see what they change more than what they keep. With the new show nearing, I thought it would be the perfect time to start a rewatch and cover the series starting with Book 1. Obviously. Now, I gotta be honest, as I'm recording this, I'm extremely scared to make this video for the absolute workload of an edit it's going to be. But writing this video has been extremely fun. I took the liberty of rewatching the show and taking notes in order to help my goldfish brain at least attempt to remember half the things that happened. And I gotta say, I'm not surprised, but Book 1 was really great. There's a lot of moments that made me explode or even myself, and I wish I was joking. Please subscribe so I can buy a new pair of pants. Anyways, let's just get straight into Book 1, Water. Firstly, holy shit. Like, I mean, holy shit. Being 100% honest with you guys, I wasn't too excited to watch Book 1. In the sense of, yes, Book 1 is great, but it's by far the slowest and most filler-filled season of the 3. And knowing me and how much I love a certain character that pops up in Book 2, I really just wanted to get Book 1 out of the way. So, I was genuinely surprised how much I really enjoyed a lot of Book 1. Hell, not even enjoyed, I absolutely loved this season. Honestly, I remember Book 1 being more on the boring and filler end than any of the other seasons of Avatar. Now, not to say that this didn't have filler, it most certainly did have filler, but it wasn't as bad as I remember it being. And for a cartoon from like, what, 2005, I was surprised just how well the animation holds up. At least in Book 1, I do have some issues with the animation and the aspect ratio only being 4:3 with a mix of 720p if you don't upscale it on your own, which I obviously upscaled it to 4K. But watching it upscaled, I don't know, maybe it's just the Demon Slayer fan in me, but I found the linings were kinda crap. Guys, and a lot of the lining around the characters would just kind of blend into the background and disappear, and you wouldn't really, it just wouldn't look too good. But the choreography and the fight scenes were absolutely great, and once I upscaled it on my own from 720 to 4K or 1080, I really didn't have much of an issue with it. That's just more of a minor complaint and a nitpick more than a actual critique of the show. But honestly, the animation really isn't that bad. I'd say it's a lot better looking than shows that aired around its time like Naruto or even early One Piece. Avatar still looks a lot better than those shows, which it's inspired from. Again, my only complaint could be that the lining around the characters could be a lot thicker, which it seems they fixed in later seasons and even in The Legend of Korra. But again, this is a show from 2005, so going into the animation quality is really just pointless. Because while I think the animation is lacking in some areas, when it comes to fight scenes, they absolutely cook with the choreography. Like, I'm serious, you cannot tell me they didn't draw over frames of actual ninjas, because the moves they be pulling in this show are insane. And while again, I do think, yes, it could use a little more modern touch-up in the animation, the story on the other hand, but yeah, no, that shit was absolutely peak. The story for Book 1 was absolutely amazing, so let's just stop wasting time and dive right into it, starting with something I bet you didn't know, Episode 0. How old was I when I found out that there was an Episode 0? I was today years old. So believe me when I say, to my genuine surprise, while I was on IMDb looking for the air dates of the first 2 episodes, I found out that Nick had released an unaired pilot for the series. And it was kinda cool, actually. Besides the absolutely headache-inducing animation, worse than what we get in like any early 2000s show. I mean, this shit was god-f***ing awful. Story-wise, it was a cool look at the early stages of the show. Now, I don't want to harp too much on this episode, as it was definitely unfinished, or at least I hope it was unfinished, or at least made as a concept, because this episode is extremely rough around the edges. But that's all the negatives I'll say, as I'd much rather dive into the cool what-ifs and earlier concepts of the episode, like, did you know Katara was actually named Kaya up until the first episode dropped? And alright, the what-ifs end there, but there's still some cool stuff in here. We get a concept of what became the main OP for the series, a kind of different version of Katara's opening monologue, still pretty close to the original, but there were some minor changes. In this version of the show, which is honestly a crime, there is somehow no Uncle Iroh, like, at all, so I can see why this never got put out. But hey, they tried, and well, it clearly failed. Zuko also never once said his catchphrase, which you hear him say every 5 seconds, which by the way, try taking a shot every single time honor is said on your next rewatch of the show, and
their honor didn't hinge on the Avatar's capture.
The honor to
Honor.
honorable.
My honor.
Be honored.
It's the honor.
And honor.
It's honor.
Honored. Dishonored.
It's an honor.
Honor of a life.
yeah, I think it's safe to say you'll be blackout drunk within an hour. Well, obviously, I can see why they didn't air this. How are you gonna have Avatar Last Airbender without Uncle Iroh? That's just one huge crime, one could argue. I mean, the list goes on. Worse than the movie, one might even say, and the movie was pretty bad. And to quickly answer this question, no, I'm not going to go into depth onto each episode, but more so a brief review of them, if you even want to call it that. Finally, let's dive into the real book 1, starting with episodes 1 and 2. First and foremost, holy shit, man. This is how you do a pilot episode. The series opens on probably the coldest way imaginable, with Katara's monologue filling us in on the 100 years worth of story, perfectly setting up the power system, the elements, and, well, the villains and who the hero is as well. Leaving us only with the opening, there's already some incredible potential for world building and characters we could run into only 2 minutes in. That's absolutely insane how amazing and well done of an opening this is. Seriously, I can't stress enough just how much I love this opening. I genuinely pray every night that this doesn't get cut from the live action because this is peak. But moving on from that banger of an opening, the actual episode itself was also really good. Again, genuinely one of the best pilots I've ever seen, alongside The Walking Dead and Attack on Titan, with just perfect episode 1s. The episode itself opens with Katara and Sokka sailing to catch some fish, giving us a neat little introductions to their characters, establishing quickly that not everyone in this world has the ability to bend. What a loser! Can't even use magic! Along with the fact that not everyone can be benders, we also learn that people can also be bad at bending. What a loser. She's not even good at using magic. They very, and I mean very quickly stumble upon Aang, like absolutely no time is wasted there. And we get a fun little light-hearted character introduction for Aang. He's just a silly little guy who wants to go penguin sledding. Shortly after that, we meet the best character in Book 1, Uncle Iroh, the literal goat. And I guess we also meet his edgy grandson, Zuko, who I guess is important to the story. But Iroh's better. The rest of the episode sees Aang just kind of playing around the Water Tribe, really getting to know his character, as well as Sokka and Katara. All goes south when Aang accidentally boobies a trap.
We boobied right into it.
Causing Zuko to attack the village and search for his honor or something like that. I don't know. Iroh wasn't really in the scene, so I kind of stopped paying attention. Aang obviously lets Zuko capture him in order to spare the tribe, and Zuko heads out with Aang while Iroh hits the fattest nap ever. Rest well, sunshine. Almost immediately after they leave, Aang makes his great escape with the help of Sokka and Katara riding on Appa, who I somehow forgot to mention, by the way. I honestly don't know how I forgot to mention Appa, but he's adorable. I want an Appa for myself. So subscribe so I can buy myself an Appa. How am I going to do that? Don't ask. Just subscribe so I can buy an Appa. The episode ends with Zuko swearing to capture the Avatar, and going forward, I'm going to try my best to not go this into depth with each episode, as we're already at like 10 minutes in length in the video, and there's 18 more episodes to go. But as for my thoughts on this episode, I can quickly sum it up by saying it was perfect, minus a few issues I have with the kind of quick pacing. I have genuinely zero complaints. Again, the opening monologue is the literal definition of perfect. If any of my homies from Netflix are watching, it's not too late. Please put it, please, for the love of God, please just put. And the character intros were really damn good. The highlight for me being Sokka, who's just straight up the funniest hater of all time. Bringing me the most laughs, even though this was like my 5th or 6th watch of the show, I still absolutely loved how much of just a plain hater Sokka was. I loved getting to see the early planting of the seeds, such as Aang and Katara and Zuko's quest for honor, and more so what honor means to him, and how Iroh will and is always by Zuko's side. And Iroh, I mean, come on, man, he's just the GOAT. If you don't love Uncle Iroh, I don't think I can trust you at all. This episode shows us everything we need to know that we're in for an amazing treat, and it has so many tricks up its sleeves, and it barely used any of the tricks it has for its 3 seasons, and that's a good thing because we got so many episodes left to go, and they really just gave us a taste of what's to come. This was a solid 9 out of 10 double premiere, bringing us into episode 30. This episode continues on the path that the first 2 set, giving us just tiny bits of lore to keep us interested, building little by little as we go. This episode we get to learn about the Avatar cycle as well as what Zuko's whole deal is, but only a little bit of it, and also our first Agni Kai of the series. Get our first mention of the Fire Lord, as well as just starting to build him up as this mysterious figure in book 1, which he does turn out to be. As well, alongside mentioning him, we'd see just how ruthless the Fire Nation was in this 100-year war when Team Avatar visits the Southern Air Temple. They arrive to see it completely in ruin and empty, with only a Fire Nation helmet left to prove that there was ever anyone there in the first place. Which, for a Nickelodeon show, that's some dark shit, man. Aang, upon seeing his home in ruins, sends him straight into a rage in the Avatar state, only being calmed down by his newfound family, of course being Sokka and Katara. This episode was a solid 8 out of 10 episode, once again showing just how great this show is even in its early stages. And most importantly for me, it showed that, yeah, the first 2 episodes weren't a fluke and we are actually in for something really special. And okay, so these next set of episodes, I'm clumping them up more so for time reasons, because there's a lot to talk about, and these episodes didn't really have a lot to talk about, or at least a lot I want to talk about in the episodes, so I'm just gonna put these together, and I'm gonna do this a couple times throughout the video when there's just a set of episodes that are just or they just don't attribute much to the overall story. I will say by far my favorite episode was the 4th, and it was by far also the most important episode, where we meet Suki and the warriors, Suki who will become a much bigger player by book 3, as well as we get our first mention of Avatar Kyoshi. By far, Sokka and Suki were the best parts of this episode, and I can't wait to see her back later on in the series. Episode 5 was extremely boring, and I wish I didn't have to rewatch that. I guess it was kind of nice to see Aang's past and how different life was 100 years ago, but overall this episode just kind of felt like a waste of time. Outside of some minor world and plot building, it was just kind of boring. And yes, I know we needed to introduce Boomy and of course the infamous Cabbage Man, but other than that, episode 6 was a lot more fun. This episode was focused around Katara, who by far is my favorite of Team Avatar, at least again in book 1. And well, again, not much happened this episode, but it was really good to show just how ruthless the Fire Nation was and how stupid they are. I mean, come on, Momo was clearly the one earthbending. If there's one thing that I can say about these episodes, while they don't have much in common, they're all a necessary aspect of world building and hammering home just how bad the Fire Nation was, if you didn't know that already. Finally, after 3 episodes of what could honestly for the most part be considered filler, we finally get some more major plot moment in this 2-part banger of an episode. Now, I only say both of them because, well, this is a part 1 and part 2 is certifiably a banger. Part 1 is I was debating on clumping in episode 7 with 4 to 6, but for how similar my issues were with those, I couldn't because this was a part 1 and part 2, and it just didn't feel right. But if it wasn't for the episode that came after this would probably be my least favorite episode. I mean, at least episode 5 had the cabbage man. I obviously can't pass over the fact that we got our first real glimpse of the end game to the series in this episode, and yeah, that about wraps out the episode, but episode 8 made up for it. This episode was huge for the future of the series, giving us our main quest for the remainder of the series, because in this episode we see Team Avatar travel to the Fire Nation to connect with Avatar Roku, finding out what that weird comet vision thingy he kept seeing was. Only funny enough to find out it means the literal end of the world. Funny enough, that was actually on my bingo card, so at least I won something in life. As it would turn out, Aang has like all of 3 months to learn each element, master them actually, to stop the Fire Nation before a comet gives them some kind of crazy Dragon Ball level power up and end the world. Yeah, that's right, Book 1 has a weird inconsistency of having really good episodes and then really boring episodes and then really good episodes, just kind of back and forth like Whiplash. You don't get a consistent this is good or this is bad, it's just all over the place. And we're back to filler. Oh yes, this episode has some cool moments, and we did get good plot movement with Aang finally learning waterbending, as well as Katara. I can't help but feel, as funny as Zuko fighting pirates was, it was just not really needed that much, but still a fun time. Now, in terms of episode 10, I gotta be honest, I remember not being a big fan of this episode every single time I watched it, so I was fully expecting it to be one of the more boring episodes. But not bad by any means, as I don't think Avatar has any bad episodes, except for one episode, but we'll hit that divide when we get there. I was quite surprised at my enjoyment of the episode. Jet and the gang were fun, their smooth moves, and those fun tree houses quickly getting Katara and Aang to fall for them, Katara in the more literal sense, but womp womp. Jet isn't as good as he seems, beating up and robbing a literal old man, and literally ready to kill an entire town of villagers later in the episode just to get rid of a few Fire Nation soldiers. I mean, hey, you gotta get rid of the pests somehow. Good thing, too, because this is probably the best episode yet. The episode focuses on the past and present trauma of Zuko and Aang. Aang feeling extremely guilty over letting the Fire Nation take over for 100 years, while in the past we see the anxiety and exclusion that came with being the Avatar. Which is something I massively appreciated, as up to this point, we've had hints of his past and his guilt, but never truly dove into it. And on the other hand, we get a glimpse of Zuko's past, back when he wasn't an edgy brat. That's right, Zuko was actually a sweet kid who just wanted the best for his people, only to end up getting beat and outcasted by his dad till he finds some airbending kid. I mean, we've all been there, haven't we? But on a more real note, Zuko has a pretty harsh backstory, and it's easy to see why he turned out the way he did. This episode was perfect at showcasing what Aang and Zuko have in common, and it was more than we thought, leading us into probably the best episode of the season. Yes, that's right, you heard me, back-to-back bangers. I didn't think that was possible either. And I know I just said the last episode was the best episode of the season, but I mean this one is. I got confused, okay? I mean it for real this time. This is the best episode. It had all the action, drama, great and interesting plot developments. I think I'm falling in love with it. To sum up this masterpiece of an episode, Sokka and Katara are sick, so Aang sets out in search for medicine to help them, only to lead to him getting captured again. Part of me thinks Aang likes to be captured because it happens way too often to be an accident. After getting captured, Aang just kinda hangs around for a bit until a mysterious person in a blue mask sets him free in the most epic escape scene ever. Seriously, I loved this fight scene. The animation and the choreography was out of this world. Literally almost sent me to the hospital because my mind was about to explode. But jokes aside, I can't put into words how exciting this episode was, and how high the tension rose with every single shot. I know I complained about the animation here and there, but oh my god, did they ever cook for this? And I mean it, they cooked, and not only did they cook, but they cooked me a damn feast. Backing this episode with true love and care with some of, if not the best choreography I've ever seen in animation, hands down. Holy shit. Ending in one of the most craziest scenes in the show, revealing that the person who saved Aang was Zuko, leaving the door open for some really interesting moments later on in this series. This episode had amazing action and great character moments mixed in with that last reveal of Zuko. We're definitely in for a treat for the back half of Book 1. I can feel it. Yeah, I've never been so immediately wrong in my entire life. Okay, so we have another situation where I'm clumping up episodes, this time again because not a lot really happened here to justify me or for me to even have anything to talk about. So I'm just gonna go through these and read them off to you. So episode 14, Aang simping. He's just a friend. Fortune teller shits on Sokka. Aang's a simp. Filler at its finest. Okay, I guess that gets my thoughts clear for episode 14. You know, what wasn't good. What wasn't too bad. Let's see what I have for episode 15. Looking to the past of Sokka and Katara. Okay. These episodes seem pretty good. Aang hides the map. Zuko hires a mommy to hunt down. What that tongue do? Okay, episode 16, inner look at the Fire Nation. Katara can heal people. Okay, and episode 17 just says nothing to say. I'm so sorry to episode 17 fans. I literally have nothing to say on the episode. I don't even remember what happened. Episode 18. Finally, I give a shit again. And oh boy, does shit get truly real. Team Avatar finally arrives at the North Water Tribe. Man, does it ever feel satisfying. After a long 17 episode journey, finally arriving at the Water Tribe just feels so satisfying. It really makes you look back at the entire journey we just went on, and it makes it all feel worth it. Yes, even episode 11. Like, truly, it completely changed how I viewed every single episode making it up to here, making them all feel like such an essential part of this journey. I think I'd genuinely feel robbed if any episode was taken away. I mean, hey, I needed my nap during episode 11, okay? I was getting pretty tired. I gotta be honest, it takes some truly great writing to accomplish a feat that makes episode 11 look good. But I mean, hey, somehow they pulled it off. Now, this isn't the most exciting episode, but it didn't need to be. It was nice to just see our characters relax and get some time in training. Almost all of our characters. Sokka's busy risen up a princess. Oh, and Katara, well, she just kind of casually challenges Aang's master to an Agni Kai. Again, that fight scene was absolutely amazing. As for underdeveloped as her bending is, she stood her ground really well. For what little happened in this episode, I absolutely loved it, and it feels so good to finally be at the Water Tribe. Finally, episodes 19 and 20, the moment I've all been waiting for. Now, yes, this episode is mostly set up for the next episode, but it's still cooks. The majority of the episode is spent getting ready for the battle ahead of them. Aang and Katara spend the early half of the episode getting ready while Sokka argues with some spoiled brat, while showcasing just how much he's learned on this journey and how much of a warrior he truly is on the inside. Ready to risk his life for the princess and her tribe as if protecting the Avatar wasn't manly enough. Seriously, Sokka is so shit on in this series, but I mean, he has no powers and he went on this crazy journey to bring the Avatar to the Water Tribe. Big props to my guy. While they're busy doing that, a shit ton of Fire Nation troops just show up. And again, I gotta hand it to Iroh for being the uncle of all time. Dude is the true MVP of this show. But anyway, Zuko somehow sneaks his way in while Aang and the crew are busy finding a way to talk to the spirits. Leading into probably my favorite fight scene of book 1, and that is Zuko versus Katara. This is a fight that has been cooking up in the background for quite some time, and it was absolutely phenomenal. Katara has learned so much in such little time, and she's, like I said, my favorite character in book 1, and it was so satisfying to see her finally kick some ass. Unfortunately, Zuko still won the fight, and he got hold of Aang, and the Fire Nation closes in by the end of the episode. Truly can't say enough just how good this episode was. Katara is truly an underrated fire at this point, putting Zuko in his place, close to soloing him this early on. The tensions were high, leaving me on the edge of my seat going into episode 20. Finally, we've made it here. After almost 30 minutes of runtime for this video, we've made it to the dramatic, climactic, and epic finale, and I do mean epic, episode 20. Let me tell you guys, this shit was f***ing wild. The first half of the episode was focused on Aang in the spirit realm looking for Sun and Moon, while Zuko just kind of mopes around complaining about his sister, dad, and his childhood, and this and that. Like, we get it. He burnt your face. We've all been there. Stop crying. While Zuko is doing his Zuko thing, Aang in the spirit world is having the most shit-spewing experience ever. And, well, I'm sure you don't know what I mean by that, but unfortunately, you're about to. Avatar Roku tells Aang how the spirits he's looking for aren't actually there, and to take a hike to someone called the Face Stealer. Now, you might be thinking, hey Chris, that sounds like someone if whom I meet I might run in the opposite direction, or shit myself.
Welcome.
And you shit yourself. Anyways, that thing tells Aang where he can find Sun and Moon, and we see a cute panda. I really needed that. Aang returns to the mortal world while Katara and Co find him just in time to rescue him. Katara and Zuko have the coldest rematch, if you can even call it a rematch, and in an amazing twist of writing, Aang repays the favor and saves Zuko's life. When they get back to the Water Tribe, it is utter chaos and war, and Zhao kills the Moonfish, sending Iroh into one of the most badass forms I've ever seen him in, absolutely shitting on everyone in his sight. I love that man so much. Aang does some crazy Avatar stuff. Zuko finally puts Zhao in his place, and Sokka's girlfriend turns into the moon, sacrificing herself for the balance of the world, going out like a true hero. Zuko and Iroh leave the Water Tribe, living to fight another day, and return in another season, where we get our first look at my favorite villain ever, Azula, given the task of finding and capturing the Avatar, bringing Book 1 to its end. And so we finally reached the end. Episode 20 was absolutely phenomenal. I think every episode was, and this really just goes to show what made Avatar so good, is the fact that everything matters, or at least everything feels like it matters, even if when you're watching the episode, you think it doesn't matter, or you think it's bad. By the time you get to the end, everything feels so sweet. Like, it really feels like you went on this journey with them. Now, obviously, there are still books 2 and 3 to get into, which I'm so excited to get into book 2 because Toph is my favorite character of all time. But it really just goes to show what made Avatar so good is its writing and characters. And that only evolves the further we go. Now, I would love to do videos on book 1 and 2. It just depends on how well you guys like this video. So if you did enjoy it, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and let me know your thoughts on book 1 down below. I also want to make things clear, again, there is no bad episode in Avatar. A lot of that was either for a joke for the video, along with also the stuff with Zuko. I actually love Zuko a lot, but the video just flowed better whenever I made fun of him, as well as Sokka. For my final thoughts, I think book 1's amazing. It's a really solid entry to the series, and a really great start, and it really shows everything we need to know going forward into book 1 and book 2. I do think this is the worst of the 3 parts, and I do think it can be really slow and boring at times. I mean, hey, this has episode 11. But that is all for this video. If you guys did enjoy, again, leave a like and subscribe. Let me know you enjoyed the video. Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened. Thanks for watching.